Fear isn't just an emotion, it's a weapon. Governments and corporations use it to control your choices, influence your behavior, and keep power in their hands. But how do they do it? Let's break it down. Throughout history, those in power have relied on one undeniable truth. Fear is more effective than force. Force demands resources, constant oversight, and risks rebellion. But fear? Fear slips into your mind, creating invisible chains stronger than any physical restraint. It shapes how we think, how we act, and even how we see the world around us. So how has fear been turned into the ultimate tool of control? Stick around, because understanding this might just help you break free. The mechanism of fear-based manipulation is anything but simple. It's a calculated, multi-layered strategy. It starts by targeting humane vulnerabilities, our insecurities, cultural fears, and primal survival instincts. These weak points become the entryway for carefully crafted narratives designed to provoke powerful emotional reactions. Fear doesn't just happen, it's engineered. Think about how media and communication platforms really operate. Today's news cycles aren't designed to inform, they're designed to provoke. Sensational headlines, shocking imagery, and fragmented stories keep us in a constant state of low-grade anxiety. Over time, we're trained to see threats everywhere, even when they're not real. Governments have long recognized fear as a potent political tool. During times of perceived external threat, populations become more compliant, more willing to surrender individual liberties in exchange for a promise of protection. Historical examples abound, from wartime propaganda to the Cold War era. Fear, mongering about communist infiltration, the playbook remains consistent. The industrial military complex has particularly mastered this technique. By continuously highlighting potential external threats, whether real or imagined, governments can justify increased military spending, surveillance mechanisms, and restrictions on civil liberties. The rhetoric of national security becomes a convenient umbrella under which numerous control mechanisms can be implemented. Corporations have equally sophisticated fear-based strategies. Advertising and marketing industries thrive on creating and then solving perceived problems. Personal care products promise to eliminate social embarrassment. Financial services prey on retirement insecurities. Technology companies generate anxiety about being left behind in a rapidly changing world. Social media platforms have revolutionized fear manipulation. Negative content spreads faster and generates more interaction than positive information. Users become trapped in echo chambers that continuously reinforce their anxieties, creating self-perpetuating cycles of fear and uncertainty. Psychological research reveals that fear activates primitive brain regions responsible for survival responses. When threatened, humans default to fight, flight, or freeze modes. Critical thinking diminishes and emotional reasoning takes over. This neurological hijacking makes people more susceptible to simplified narratives and authoritarian solutions. Economic systems also leverage fear strategically. By creating narratives of scarcity, competition, and constant risk, corporations and governments can justify extreme economic measures. Workers become more compliant, accepting lower wages and reduced rights out of fear of unemployment. Consumers make impulsive purchasing decisions driven by manufactured insecurities. The COVID-19 pandemic provided a stark demonstration of fear's manipulative potential. While genuine public health concerns existed, various actors exploited collective anxiety for diverse agendas. Governments expanded surveillance powers, corporations pushed digital transformation, media generated constant streams of anxiety-inducing content. Cognitive biases play a critical role in fear-based manipulation. Confirmation bias drives people to seek information that validates existing fears, creating self-reinforcing narratives. Availability bias makes recent or dramatic threats seem more probable than statistical realities. These psychological shortcuts designed to help our ancestors survive, now make us susceptible to manufactured narratives of threat and uncertainty. Emotional contagion amplifies fear's spread. Humans are neurologically wired to synchronize emotional states within social groups. When fear becomes collective, it transforms from an individual experience into a powerful social phenomenon. Media and digital platforms leverage this mechanism, creating echo chambers that intensify and propagate anxiety. Psychological research demonstrates that prolonged exposure to fear fundamentally alters neural pathways. Chronic stress triggers sustained activation of the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center. This neurological state reduces cognitive flexibility, making individuals more prone to reactive rather than reflective thinking. People become less capable of nuanced analysis, more susceptible to simplistic solutions presented by authority figures. Economic systems weaponize uncertainty. Job markets characterized by instability generate constant low-grade anxiety. Workers become more compliant, accepting reduced rights and stagnant wages out of fear of unemployment. Retirement becomes a source of persistent worry, driving consumer behaviors and financial decisions rooted in fear rather than rational planning. Educational systems play a crucial role in conditioning psychological responses. Curriculum designs frequently emphasize compliance and conformity over critical analysis. Students are trained to accept institutional narratives rather than develop independent analytical frameworks. Knowledge transmission becomes a process of psychological conditioning where challenging existing power structures is discouraged. Geopolitical strategies leverage fear as a fundamental mechanism of international relations. National security narratives consistently construct external threats, positioning different cultural groups as potential adversaries. These constructed tensions justify massive military expenditures, surveillance infrastructure, and restrictive policy frameworks that compromise individual freedoms. Religious and ideological frameworks have long utilized fear as a control mechanism. Spiritual narratives employ concepts of divine punishment, moral judgment, and existential threat to maintain social compliance. These frameworks create psychological systems that extend beyond immediate institutional boundaries. Resistance to systematic fear, manipulation, requires a multifaceted approach that addresses psychological, social, and institutional dynamics. Individual and collective transformation emerges through conscious strategies of awareness, critical thinking, and deliberate psychological reconstruction. Building inner strength is the first step to resisting manipulation. Learn to recognize fear-driven stories and understand how they work. Practice mindfulness, seek good education, and reflect on your thoughts. These help you break free from fear-based thinking. Develop skills to understand media critically. Don't just accept information at face value. Look at different sources, question what you hear, and try to understand the full picture. Learn to spot when someone is trying to make you afraid. Build strong social networks that value empathy and understanding. When people support each other, they become more resilient against fear-based control. Work together to solve problems and support one another. Understand that fear is a tool, not a reality. By working together, developing critical thinking, and believing in human potential, we can create more compassionate and free societies.